Hi everyone, Andrew from WiZDOM here. Excited to be bringing you video 8 in the What Do I Do Next series. And we've been working through in this series from the very beginning, which is some of the considerations that I think are important before you even start thinking about what next deal is right for you. We've been building up a person's position, particularly with regard to available equity, what all that means, and introducing deals that are appropriate for that. And in the last video, and indeed in this video, I'm talking about rationalizing portfolios. So this is for people, and we do see a lot of them, where either because of building up great portfolios over a period of time, or alternately because they're advanced in years or their current circumstance is that they don't have a lot of income. Either way, you have a really good amount of current available equity or equity in your portfolio, but you don't have a lot of borrowing power. Well, what do you do in your situation, and what are the appropriate styles of deals to work through and consider for next? Now, in the last video, I spoke about the managed discharge process, which is effectively if you are going to sell down a portion of your portfolio, how do you manage that to make sure that you end up with cash in the bank at the end of that, rather than just reduction of debt, which essentially, yes, it's an improvement in situation, but it doesn't necessarily put you in a great situation to be able to, or great position to be able to do your next deal. So I spoke about that in the last video, and I won't cover that again today. But the situation we were dealing with was, firstly, that you really need to think about, well, what's important to you and what do you want to do with regard to moving forward. We spoke in the last video about you could even go to the point of doing the one and done approach, which is you cash out your portfolio by virtue of sale, and you then put that money into leveraging some really great different policy that is out there in the non-traditional lending space, and you get into a great cash flow property, which ticks all of your cash flow boxes, and then you sail off very happily, merrily into the sunset. But not everyone wants to do that. You know, there are certainly clients of mine who would like to stay active in property, but aren't necessarily in a situation where they can leverage straight into a deal. And again, it's important to cover that, of course, all of the joint venture approaches and everything else that we have spoke to so far, where you aren't specifically buying a property yourself, are available to you and absolutely could be the way that you go about getting into the market or staying active in property. But one thing that I think it's worthwhile covering is where I refer to the rationalization of the portfolio, but specifically to get into a manufactured growth strategy, and what does that look like? So here we're talking about that by virtue of selling down and doing the managed discharge process, you end up with a good amount of money in the bank. And look, I've said $1 million plus, but it essentially doesn't matter whether we're talking about 250,000, 500,000, 750, $1 million or beyond. Either way, you end up with an amount of money in the bank that's available to you, but you aren't necessarily in a great position to be able to do traditional lending. So from my perspective, how do you go about that? Once you're in that situation, what does it then look like for your next deal? Well, the good thing is we come back to, with a current available equity amount of $1 million plus, a little bit like we were dealing with in the really good portfolio situation where borrowing was available, it actually puts you in a great position to be able to be doing a ton of different manufactured growth strategy deals. So with $1 million plus, you could absolutely be thinking about looking at cash funding deals completely in their own right. So you could go and do a renovation or a subdivision by just buying the property outright, executing on your strategy, making the money and moving on. And certainly there are a bunch of clients that I've got that absolutely do that. They use their really great cash position just to cash fund deals themselves. Alternately, if we look at using the likes of that non-traditional private lending money that's available, which, as I said, is quite expensive, you do need to consider that you'll be paying, even on a normal deal, probably a good 10 to 12% in interest rate and probably 3% in and out costs. So it is substantially expensive money. There's no question about that. But there are great private lenders out there who are very willing to fund good deals. And essentially what they're making their decision on is that it's two pieces of the puzzle here. One, what does the security look like? So what are they getting as an asset? And the other part is how are they getting their money back? Which for me aligns really well with manufactured growth strategies that we look to do anyway. Virtually every manufactured growth strategy is essentially buy a property, execute on our strategy, sell the property, make our money, move on to the next one. So I personally believe that the fit between manufactured growth strategies and private money is a great one. Now, do I wish that we could have that available to us cheaper? Yes, absolutely. But it is what it is, and it facilitates what we're trying to do. And at the end of the day, if we make great profit out of that, well, the reality is, yes, we could have been more profitable at a cheaper interest rate, but profit is profit, and that is a good thing. And we can always just bank that and move on to our next deal anyway. So from a manufactured growth strategy deal perspective, what do I like to see in this space? If one of my clients had $1 million and wanted to be active, well, again, it's very much going to come back to what suits them, how much time have they got available, what kind of experience have they got, and at the end of the day, what types of deals do they actually want to do and enjoy doing. We could be talking about, renos all the way through from a small renovation to a large substantial renovation. We, of course, can be talking about subdivisions, both small ones and potentially some larger subdivisions. So rather than just 1 into 2, could also be 1 into 2, 1 into 3, 1 into 4, 1 into 5, or beyond. And naturally, in the development space, we could always be talking about a ton of different styles of deal there too, meaning all the way from knock over and construct one home lower end through to one home higher end or one home premium. And of course, we can equally be talking about replacing that one home with multiple. So knock over, build a duplex, 2, townhouses, or 3 or 4 or thereabouts. Beyond that, we're probably putting a bit too much pressure on our $1 million current available equity. And it's very fair to say that, given the fact that this is all the money available, we would want to be also cautious about not going too big and putting ourselves in too risky a situation with that as well. But I personally actually think that this kind of situation is really, really exciting, and it's applicable for people with no income using private money, just as equivalent as it is to people who have great borrowing power and looking to do great manufactured growth strategies. The truth is there's not that much difference between the two, other than with a really, really solid borrowing power, you might have access to traditional money. I will say though, in my experience with a lot of people, particularly around development style deals, is because of traditional lending, where we're talking about banks here, having expectations of things like pre-sales, where no matter how strong you are, they still want you to sell down at least, half of the development or potentially more, and have what they refer to as 100% debt coverage. Because of rules like that and situations like that, I can certainly show you tons and tons of clients that we've supported into deals using private money, just because we didn't want to have to go down the road of things like pre-sales, which slow us down. Potentially, you've got to sell it at a discount to pre-sell it, and you don't necessarily maximize your total outcome. And so I can show you, again, plenty of people who theoretically could have gone down the traditional money route, and instead, we've actually made the conscious decision to go, no, we'll take the more expensive private money. It doesn't come with all of the pre-sale requirements. We can get started faster. We can get the project to completion. And then we feel that we will be selling at a premium on the back end of that, rather than having to pre-sell. So they've absolutely made the conscious choice to be able to do that. So the other thing that probably excites me the most about this kind of thing is, and when we use, if we're, rather than taking the one and done approach of cash flow, despite the fact there's nothing wrong with that, the thing that I love about this is it's repeatable. The truth is the clients that decide to do this, it's never a case of they do the one project, they've made their money, and then they sail off into the sunset. I find that most of the time they love doing what they're doing. They get a kick out of it. They make great money out of that. It keeps them busy with interesting, engaged projects. And as a result of that, they just continue to repeat that. So whether it's a case of you doing the one big project or you break down your ability into multiple projects and manage them on the go, either way, just the sheer repeatability of manufactured growth strategy, I think, is a wonderful thing if you're, in this situation where you can't necessarily traditionally lend and continue to build your property portfolio. So again, hopefully for any of you that are in that situation, that makes a lot of sense to you, and it's helpful with regard to what is a potential great next deal for you and what should you do next. I'm really excited to bring more videos with regard to this series. And as always, happy investing and bye.